At first glance, roles seem like something that shouldn't change the results. They aren't very concrete, and at first, the extent to which they impact games of Valorant appears unclear. So if you're skeptical that a closer look at this topic can even benefit you, I understand where you're coming from, because I started in the same spot. I didn't even read the role descriptions until recently. But closer inspection can show how roles actually lead to a core motivation for a lot of decisions in Valorant. And if you aren't careful or aware, roles can easily lead a player to the wrong decisions without them ever realizing what happened. Roles can also stop players from winning games when they could win without any changes to raw skill. That's why it's important to understand where roles can help or hurt you in Valorant. Hello everyone, my name is Achax, and today we are going to talk about roles. By roles, I'm talking about Duelist, Controller, Sentinel, and Initiator, basically the class system in the game. Roles are essentially categories. They come with an umbrella of things that a player is supposed to do if they take on that role. They provide direction. In a game where 5 random players face the challenge of cooperating right from the start, some semblance of structure early on can be a very good thing. The problems really start when players take things too far, and this is an easy mistake to make because it's not written anywhere where that too far begins. Finding this line is important in not allowing this mistake to cost you games, so let's start there. In the introduction, I mentioned decision making. If you take a second to think about it, it might make sense that there is something that allows you to sort your options when you make a decision. There is some axis around which you can weigh your options. If there wasn't such an axis, then all of your options would have the same appeal because there would not be any criteria around which to weigh them in the first place. So what is that axis? I'm going to operate under the assumption that you want what you want, which, yeah, seems pretty reasonable to me. There are things that you want right now, like a cookie, and then there are goals. Goals are a good axis because when they are, you can make decisions to take actions that bring you closer to something you want. Coming back to the line where taking roles too far begins, I would suggest you might draw that line where roles start to replace your goals as the axis for decision making. The reason for this is when non-goals start to push out goals as the axis, it's really easy to start moving in the wrong direction away from what you want. There is nothing special about roles as a non-goal. I just find roles to be far and away the culprit of carrying players away from their goals without them noticing. In the case of Valorant competitive, most players' immediate goal is to win. When roles start to replace winning as the decision-making axis, players can go wildly off course from their own destination without even realizing it. Roles lead players to this mentality of, I will do my job because that is what I am supposed to do. And it's good to do your part well, and it's commendable, and you should be proud of it. But the mentality that often follows is if other people don't do their job, I'm not going to try to fix it because it's not my responsibility and it's not my problem. And the first idea that it isn't your responsibility might or might not be right, but either way, it is certainly your problem because you are losing along with your teammates since they aren't doing their jobs. And losing is not what you want to win, so it is your problem. There's no getting around that. And that illustrates the central issue. Because they are fulfilling their roles, players feel as if they are doing what they should be doing, which isn't wrong. And when they are losing, they feel as if it isn't their fault, which it isn't their fault. But as a result, they feel that they don't have to change what they are doing, which once again isn't technically wrong, but they do have to change what they are doing if they want to win, and that is the crucial difference. If a player is fueled by roles, then they would not change their actions in this situation because it isn't their fault that they are losing. If that player lets winning be their axis instead, then they would change their actions in the same situation because even though it isn't their fault, moving outside of the sphere of their role is necessary to win. Alright, now that we have a good understanding of the core issue, let's narrow down and get practical. There are countless examples of players stopping themselves from winning in very creative ways. These mistakes are easy to make, and you definitely shouldn't feel bad if you are making one of these. Let's go over a few of the more common ones. A player might think, wow, Jett is such a cool agent. It takes a lot of skill to be super aggressive and land all of those flicks and win the awkward fights, and all my favorite pros play Jett. I'm going to play Jett. So they lock Jett, even though they don't play close enough to the opponents to smoke themselves off and deny trades, so the smokes are pretty much useless. And they play super far back in really good angles while preferring to commit to fights, which means they never need to dash. Then they use updraft like once on defense in the pre-round. On top of that, their team expects them to look for entries, but they don't want to be super aggressive and aren't incredible at flicking, so they lurk the entire attacking half. The problem here is that Jett's kit is not amplifying our players' playstyle. It's like your strengths are noteworthy and could be amazing. Why are you choosing a kit that isn't going to amplify those strengths? Choose a kit that is going to let you do what you do best, even better. The key concept is that the duelist role is not what makes Jett best suited for entry fragging. It's the actual literal kit, the actual abilities that do that. For example, the dash can pull Jett out of tough situations and deny trades. It's the ability, not the role. If our player were to keep the same style, but choose KJ instead, they could benefit from access to abilities that amplify their playstyle. KJ's turret could cover another angle, allowing our players to hone in on one spot. The alarm bot could set up easy frags with info and damage amplification, and the mollies could force opponents to walk into our player's crosshair. And on top of all that, KJ is a good lurk on attack. This player might not feel as if KJ is as awesome as Jett, but those same incredible Jetts might see you stand your ground at that far back angle and use perfect crosshair placement and angle selection to find 1, 2, 3 back-to-back frags and absolutely lose their minds over your cool-headedness, confidence, and speed. It's all about perspective, and people tend to be more impressed by things they understand the difficulty of or that they struggle with. You can make any role cool, and you're more likely to do that in line with your strengths and be more effective in your games at the same time. The role doesn't make you awesome. You make the role awesome. My favorite mistake involving roles, and the main reason I made this video, is refusing to play a different role in your team than the agent you picked. The simple fact is that sometimes the Cypher has the best flick game with the best reaction time and would make the best entry fragger. Sometimes that entry pick is exactly what the team needs. Without it, they will continue to lose rounds. And sometimes that Cypher will absolutely refuse to do it because that isn't their role. Way too many times I've seen these games where the team needs someone to play a position outside of their role, and it's something key like entry frag or anchor. And this one player, who is usually playing very, very well, will refuse to fill that need for rounds on end. The whole team is practically begging them to fill the gap, and they won't adapt at all. And the funniest thing is, the team will basically play out the same round and lose it the same way for like 6 or 7 rounds straight. It's ridiculous. And these players who don't adapt are usually quite good. Good aim, quite smart, but this rigid mentality does not let them budge, and it costs them the game. That loss is very avoidable, but it's not uncommon. Sometimes the KJ is the best entry fragger the team has because they have the fastest reaction time. Sometimes the Sova will need to lurk and set up the real attack after a fake because they have the best sense of timing. You get the idea. The key concept is that even though the agents may not be the best equipped to take on a job, the players themselves are. And it is important to be flexible and willing to take positions that go against the role when beneficial for the most success. The last mistake is when a player ties their playstyle to their role. The mix of playstyles from a mix of roles can be a very strong combination. The beauty of it is that with such variety, you're really likely to catch some kind of opportunity. However, once you have more information about your opponents later in the game, you should have a much better idea of which styles, active or passive, searching or peeking or holding, work best against these particular opponents. And at this point, you don't really want to hold that variety if you can instead play styles that are strong against the opponents. I think this might be the easiest mistake so far because it's so easy to get into a habit of doing the same thing each round. It's super common to see duelists continue to play aggressive styles against opponents who hold for pushes, or sentinels who play super far back against attackers who aren't afraid to crush distance and accept site or swarm far back positions. In many situations, playing your strongest game means using your opponent's weaknesses, even if it requires you to play outside of your role. And the key concept here is play a style that is strong against the opponents, even if it is outside your role. There is this super common disconnect I am seeing where players treat fulfilling their role as their goal, even though their goal is to improve and win, and they don't care about roles at all. This causes them to miss out on real practical advantages that can help them win and rank up. The 3 common mistakes at the end were 3 of the more common advantages players throw away for roles. The central point I am trying to get across to you is that roles don't have an influence on the game beyond what players decide to give them. They are a tool provided in the game. If you can use that to secure an advantage, great, that's awesome. But if they are getting in your way, it might be best to disregard them. I hope you found some value in this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Best of luck and have a great day.